Welcome to Communication, Connection, Community, the Podcasters Podcast. This podcast takes a deep dive into modern-day communication strategies in the podcasting space. We chat with interesting people who make the podcasting and speaking spaces exciting and vibrant. We also dive into the podcasting community with news, updates, latest trends and topics from this ever-evolving space. So strap in. It's going to be one amazing ride. Let's dive into today's episode. And our guest today is Alex Love. She has over 15 years of marketing and startup experience across both private and public sectors. Prior to joining Riva Solutions, Alex served as the head of marketing at The Clearing. An entrepreneur at heart, Alex co-founded Digital District in 2013, a professional development organization aiming at fostering innovation and education in the digital sphere. Alex has a Master of Business Administration from George Washington University and a dual Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and International Business from Boston University as well. She hopes to one day pursue a doctorate and spend her golden years as an adjunct professor teaching the next generation of entrepreneurs and creative thinkers. She is a sought-after podcast guest and a podcast host as well. And I'm so glad that we're chatting today. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad that we've taken time to bread today and have a conversation about podcasting, about marketing. And podcasting is something that I'm really passionate about, as you can probably tell. But there's a piece that's sometimes missing from podcasting. We're going to get to that. And that's the marketing piece, which some people almost want to, podcasters anyways, get sick to their stomach when they hear it because they go, I didn't market my show. Why didn't I do that? But let's talk about your journey into podcasting. What led you to start out by being a guest? Inception to podcasting, right? Was as a guest?
No, I did it totally backwards. So about a year ago, maybe a year and change, my business partner from when we stood up Digital District came to me and said, hey, I have an idea for a podcast. I think there's a space in the market. We've been looking for opportunities to work together for a while. Again, would you be interested in co-hosting this podcast with me? And so I thought about it and said, I'm only 8 months pregnant. That sounds like a great idea to do right now. Ironically, Elliot, my co-host, had just had his first daughter about a month before. So again, two brand new parents trying to navigate that world. Why not add a podcast on top of that? Thankfully, he has another show and is a producer, so he was very understood at least the podcasting angle of it. But I had never guest starred on a podcast. I hadn't really listened to a ton either, to be honest. I'm more of a physical book kind of person than a podcaster. And so I said, hey, this sounds like a cool thing. Let's just figure it out as we go along. So we recorded a couple of episodes and got started. And very quickly, I think I realized I need to know a little bit more about podcasting if I'm going to be a successful host than just trying to wing it in some of these conversations where we had these really cool entrepreneurs come on and sort of talk about their journey, where they thought they were going to be, where they ended up being, and kind of pouring out their life story about failures and flipping the script on failures. Took a little bit of step back, said, let me get some chops in terms of guest starring before I dig back into launching, season 2 of our podcast.
And here I thought you did it the opposite.
No, that would have made sense. That would have totally made sense.
Because I know people that have done it where they say, you know what, I'm going to start by guesting just to used to this podcasting thing that I don't really know much about. Or they're crazy like me. And I say crazy because I worked in radio broadcasting for 25 years. So I had that experience where, okay, you can't shut me up at the best of times, just ask my spouse. So talking was never the issue. Editing was never the issue. It was not going to be an issue to be able to put that together and make it happen. But definitely, I'm so glad you came to this space. There's so many great opportunities here. And however you got here, it will get better as you go along. Any crazy stories out of that first 6 months or year that come to mind, other than the obvious of, oh my God, I'm about to give birth and my co-host just had a child as well. Let's start a show together. But any other crazy experiences or moments come out of that first few months of doing it?
Physical comedy skit, yes. And I think it actually is on video, although we typically do just post the audio, but we do record the video as well. A couple of the early episodes we did while I was on maternity leave at home with my daughter, Summer. And you can't rely on infants to take regular naps or do what they're intended to do at the time you need them to be sleeping. So I ended up on a couple of recordings, strapped baby in the carrier because she was really great about sleeping when she was in the carrier. As the older she got, the less that she was starting to sleep. I had to physically be moving. Infants always want to be moving. So there's at least 1 or 2 episodes where I'm like on the treadmill, talking with a baby, trying to get through this conversation. And the best part was at one point, my dog decides to walk in and had never really interacted with the treadmill pad before, stepped on the back of it, flew off in the middle of the recording, hit the back wall, barked and ran away, all as I'm holding a newborn and trying to facilitate this conversation with this like super cool guy talking about all of these great products that he had introduced. I'm just trying to keep it together to also not fall off myself, drop my infant, face plant. But anyway, I think we edited all of that noise out in post. So thank God for all of those editing skills that my co-host has and the fact that, we don't typically put the video piece up. But yeah, that was probably the most hilarious incident that we had on the podcast.
I love it. It's actually, that's one that you can tell and keep telling. And stories from they always say that if you're standing on a physical stage or even a virtual stage, like stories really make the presentation, right? So that's one that I would keep in your storyboard for sure for when I'm giving a presentation. I need to be able to work in this story because it's such a good one. And how dare summer not be a better trained infant?
And it resonates with all of like working moms, right? And I've gone on many things. She's in daycare, thankfully now, most except for the days where she comes back with inevitable daycare germs. So we pivot and work around those days. But it's such a relatable experience that every other working mom or parent sort of like, yeah, I've had those moments where it is what it is, and you just deal with it and move on.
It makes me scratch my head and say, how did parents, especially younger parents too, of kids who are still in that very need a lot of attention stage in their lives, how did they manage through the global pandemic? We're all under the same roof and work is only happening at home, from home, all the time. Just saying, I didn't have to deal with that. I was still working in radio at the time and we were still like emergency workers, but we had to go because in the media, you have to get the news out to people and let them know what's going on. And my spouse works for a police service. So also there's no working from home. It's nope, you're going to work. So didn't have that experience of dealing with 2-legged tots and 4-legged fur babies. And while you're trying to work from home, now that I do have a home office and a home studio, it's a little bit of a different story. So anyways, I'm sure there are more stories that will evolve as you go, but thank you for being vulnerable and giving us a laugh and sharing that for sure. I want to talk about the marketing piece, and I'm sure we'll come back to some of the experiences into podcasting that you've had so far, but I want to dive right into the marketing because it's one of those things that I mentioned just before we hit record, actually, that there are so many podcasters out there. They'll take the time to record a show and make it look and sound great. If they make it look and sound okay, that's fine too. They'll make it look and sound good enough to publish, but the one thing they don't do is they don't open their mouth and say, I have a podcast. It's more like, I have a podcast, don't tell anybody. Do you find that in general in business that the marketing piece, we're talking about it in podcasting, but do you find in general that marketing piece is missing or forgotten or not done correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is as a company owner, wherever you sort of sit in the organization, especially if you're related to marketing or putting some of these things together, is you get so entrenched and think that because you are so close to this product and you spent so much time with it, that everyone else already knows about it and has heard about it and has heard the messages to it too. So I think people are a little hesitant to put that messaging out there because to them it feels so familiar. You've been living with it for such a long time. Everyone must know about this. And in fact, that's not true. Algorithms and news feeds, they go so fast. So even something that you posted yesterday, 92% of your audience probably missed it, right? So I think people just get a little scared that they're oversaturating or oversharing because it feels so close to them. They don't want to sort of piss people off or get annoying, I guess, essentially. The internet moves too fast and people are absolutely missing your news. If you are indeed sharing it, I guess, is part of the problem too.
The other thing that, again, working in broadcasting that I found with marketing was if any budget needed to be cut, as far as for people who are investing, like they have a marketing budget, be it virtual or be it conventional radio, television, print, or whatever. If any budget needs to be cut because of quieter times or whatever, it's usually marketing. That's probably not the budget that should be cut, though. If anything, that's the budget that should be ramped up.
I think part of the challenge too is a lot of executives or, C-suite, they just don't understand the impact of marketing. And especially on the advertising side, it does take a lot of money. It does take a lot of time. I guess that's a true message across all of marketing, right? You can't just put one thing out there and say, all right, check the box. It went viral. We're done, right? It does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of nurture. It takes a lot of messaging, a lot of repeating. And so you're not able to see that instant success. People automatically write off that this is not working. But you have to constantly work to build that community, build that message, build that trust with your consumers. And unfortunately, like you said, marketing is one of those things that most people don't have the time or the patience for, just don't understand the potential impact that once you do all of the hard work, you will have a really cool community and your message will be out there and people will start to respond to it. But you can't expect overnight success. And I think that's a big reason why these budgets get cut and these programs get cut so quickly.
No, absolutely. There's also the thought too that, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm heading down the wrong path here, but just because you're successful once doesn't mean you just do it once. You might have done it once, but can you do it again? Or what's the next thing that you need to do because marketing and promotion, they go hand in hand. Just because you did marketing back 20 years ago doesn't mean that that's going to keep you successful. People want to know what you're doing now. What's the version of you now? Would you say that's true? Like where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. Unless you're a household brand like a Sharpie or a Coke, that has hundreds of years of consumer buy-in and trust in that market, you have to continuously invest in this. And something, as you said, that worked 5 minutes ago may not work on this new platform, may not work with this new generation of customers and consumers. So while the fundamentals, I think, work no matter what channel you're talking about, you have to constantly continue to try new things, do new tactics, put new content out there, refresh it, and invest a lot of time and energy in.
What's interesting, though, is those big brands that are successful, Coca-Cola, McDonald's here in Canada, well, I guess down there, Tim Hortons, they're still advertising. And they're not just going on the fact that, hey, we introduced the Big Mac X number of years ago, and people just remember, yeah, okay, they'll remember it. But there's always something new. There's always maybe a change to messaging. I remember, I think we're still in this place, and correct me if I'm wrong, where it's less about the product. It's more about the experience or the emotion or the relationship attached to that experience. And you see this with products and services. One that comes to mind here was Tim Hortons. I'm trying to think when it was, probably 5 or 6 years ago, where they were dad and his son at the hockey rink and a grandfather there too. And it's that emotional experience about the dad's there with his son at 8 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever ungodly time it was to be playing hockey. And the grandfather saying something like, and I was there for you too, son, something like that. Less about the coffee, more about the emotion, the memory, the experience. Do you find that's alive today?
Great marketing makes you feel something. And it doesn't have to be empathy or positivity. Feeling anger could also be what they want you to feel, but it has to evoke some sort of feeling for it to be memorable. And that's ultimately what all marketing is chasing.
Let's talk about how it relates to podcasters and how podcasters can embrace it with a little bit more alacrity, shall we say, because I find that the podcasters, as I said earlier, they're not putting themselves out there nearly enough. What are some simple steps that pretty much any podcaster can do to leverage marketing to their advantage?
As I said, I kind of went about this a little bit backwards. And coming from a marketing place, I did have a little bit of a personal brand. That was sort of how I started my career in marketing. I'll age myself a little bit, when social media was coming up. That was kind of the thing that they tossed to, the college kids, the interns. So I had a pretty good understanding of these platforms like Twitter and Facebook and then Instagram and that older generations didn't have at the time. So earlier in my career, I was in these places teaching people like, here's how you leverage this personal brand and build this up in these new digital networks that are not going away. So it's time to pay attention to some of these and building future blocks for, thankfully, I was in college when we were still carrying around digital cameras, but teaching the younger generations, here's how to make sure that the things that you're doing now, have fun, live your life, aren't going to come and bite you in the butt when you are starting to interview for jobs and enter the professional sphere and sort of how to live sort of both sides of that coin, like enjoy your youth, but you don't wreck potential in the private sector life that you may have setting up. So I was able to leverage some of that in terms of credibility. Got a lot of blogs out there. I've got a lot of spots and interviews and other things like that. So podcasting was something that felt natural. It's very, very popular. People like this sort of audio and video piece of it. So it just seemed like something that naturally wanted to get into. But as you said before, it got really hard really quick because I didn't know a lot about this. And so I took a strategic pause and said, okay, I need to build up my credibility a little bit more in this podcasting space because I'm known more so in the B2G, B2 government space. That's sort of the industry that I work in now. And so I do a lot of speaking on how to market to the US American government and sort of things like that. But nobody knows me as a podcaster. So I can put these messages out, sending it to my network, but this is not what they're used to hearing me talk about because all of the content from our podcast had been from a private life when I was in the entrepreneur space. And it was just sort of a pivot from my current brand. So I took a step back, as I said, and said, let me learn a little bit more about podcasting, one, because I want to be a better host. So I need to see people do it in action and see what's the process look like? How are people structuring these conversations just to make sure that this is engaging content, but that also use the platforms to talk a little bit about my platform and to build up the credibility that I'm out here speaking on podcasts, a guest on podcasts, a good host on podcasts too. But there's a lot of marketing that can be done in that community, being able to tap into other existing audiences, be a credible speaker, and their cross-pollination is very, very important in the podcasting space.
You've just unpacked so much there. We could spend the rest of the day doing a deeper dive into all of it. But I like how you said that you've used it as a piece to elevate your credibility and put yourself out there, and that podcasters should be doing that. I also like how you said you took and I can't remember the exact word you said, but you took a pause. You took a strategic pause to allow yourself to get some education, to get some clarity, and then also to get back at it with that clarity and purpose so that you would be successful as opposed to just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Plus, of course, you, as a new mom, still probably had some other things to manage as well. But I like how you said that because I think that there's this urgency to get to market without a plan, without a strategy, without any experience, and just to say, hey, I did that. And it's not about, from a podcasting mentorship or strategist position, it's not about the number of downloads. Yeah, okay, that plays in a little bit. But if the messaging isn't there, marketing and messaging go hand in hand, right? So if the messaging isn't there, if your purpose isn't there, if you don't even know why you're doing this, I'm sorry, but you're probably going to hit a brick wall at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And the other flip side too is I want to make sure that it's a valuable experience for our guests to be on the show. People are giving you their time, an hour or 2 hours, what it is to do the prep and, get on the show, do the recording. So people are coming to us with really cool stories, being very vulnerable, pitching their products, services, other things like that. I want to make sure that's not going into the ether. The time that they invested to be on the show is meaningful to them, just as it is meaningful to us. So as you said, taking that strategic pause to figure out what works, what doesn't work, means that when we have someone on season 2 of our show, hopefully that's more impactful for them and continue to get their message out just as much as they're getting our own message out.
I wanted to talk to you about something that's been I'll call it a bane of my existence. And it refers to marketing. So it's not going that far back, not that far of a back of a bane of my existence, but something about marketing. And it's about riding the wave or doing what's trendy. What's your thoughts about that? And let me give you a little bit of background or scenery. There are a lot of people now coming to the podcasting space. They're coming with, I have to do video now because podcasts, both Meta and Google have basically said, hey, you need to do video, which is great. That's fine. But there's also this push towards reels and shorts, but they all look and sound the same. They're doing what's trendy. They're riding the wave. What's your thoughts about just doing what everybody else is doing?
There's always a new platform. There's always something new. And I think marketers and those who have some messages can get very bogged down by chasing the newest, shiniest thing. And 90% of those platforms don't survive. I invested in, I don't even remember what the names are at this point. They've been gone so long, but there's always a new platform to test. And it's always going to be hyped up as the new thing that you need a strategy for and build up your community. But if that's not where your audience is, or that's not where you think your audience is going to go, it's really just attracting you from spending the time and the resources in the place where your audience is. And that's not to say that we shouldn't test out new platforms. but I think you should put the appropriate amount of effort and level of effort into these platforms to make sure that this is something that is worth a larger investment. Because as I said, there's 800 new platforms that string up every single day. It's impossible for a single person to keep up with all of that. And out of all those platforms, maybe one will make it into the mainstream where you have enough of an audience to make that investment worth it. But Big's stuck around for a long time. I mean, Facebook had its run for a very long time. I think it's starting to decline, but it is definitely still popular with some older generations. Same thing with Instagram, right? Well, TikTok, all of these things that come up, takes a while for them to come up. But I'm a big proponent of the fundamentals of marketing apply no matter what the channel is. You have to understand your audience. You have to understand what they're feeling, what they're looking for. You have to have really strong messaging across no matter where you are. So investing in those principles will never steer you wrong, and just tread lightly on those trends. And some of them will work out, but invest the right amount of time.
That means I don't have to be everywhere, because I think that's the part of the fear. It's almost like a FOMO. If I have a podcast and I'm not doing reels and shorts for Instagram, and I'm not doing my TikTok, whatever it is, and I'm not on Facebook, is that part of it? Do you believe that maybe it is a FOMO thing, that we feel that we have to, because it's just something that, I mean, Facebook's been around I'm publicly 15 years? No, longer than that. 17 years? That if we're not on Facebook, then we're not in business. But thoughts?
I think that is part of it. People don't want to leave an audience member on the table, or what if, I don't want to like exclude the newest generation who happens to be hanging out on TikTok, so I have to have TikTok. But again, it sort of goes back to your product and your service. TikTok is the majority of people on that platform, and it is creeping into older generations. I have a TikTok. I watch the content. I think there's fantastic content on it, but will I ever put a TikTok together? I don't know, right? But I definitely watch the content. But if you're dealing with a customer base or set who's, in their 50s, 60s, they're probably not on TikTok. So that content is going to go into the ether. It would be more valuable for you to invest in that Facebook strategy, because that audience truly still is on Facebook, and using that to connect with, individuals, and keeping track and pictures and things like that are important to them. So yeah, as I said, always try. If it seems like your audience is going to be there, then you definitely want to stick your toe in the water to see if this is worth it. But you should not waste your time doing 800 different segments to fit all the different specs of all of the different platforms, because then you'll miss sort of the opportunity to really promote and dig into a community and engage with a community where they are, versus chasing a couple of fish somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure. I always attune it to, I would think that probably if you're a high-level CEO or a senior manager of a company, you're not likely spending a lot of time on TikTok or Instagram. You're probably on LinkedIn. You might be on Facebook. You're probably on LinkedIn. So I have a coach who says, pick one, focus your energy there, and it's the adage of, where are your clients? Who are your clients? Number one, who are your clients? Is knowing that client avatar, because that helps you, right? In a marketing sense, it helps you know who you're talking to, structure your message accordingly, but then also know the best platforms, and not just social media. Is it also email campaigning? Is there some external medias that you need to look at? Other media sources, billboards, even conventional radio, television, news, maybe not newspapers as much as previously, but are there other platforms you need to look at? Is it also a matter of looking at putting your name out there for sponsoring different events? Because that's, again, part of marketing, and also maybe speaking at those events or being a vendor at those events, as opposed to, I'm going to put all my effort into making sure every day I have a TikTok video or whatever it is. So it's knowing where your audience is, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely mixed media. In the space that I'm in right now, government contracting, it's very relationship based. So we don't have a podcast for our company. We definitely have a lot of digital content that goes out there, but people to people connection is really where we sort of move the needle in terms of sales. So that's a huge part of how we frame our company, is making sure those business development and relationship building individuals who are out there have a strong place and a strong message and a strong platform to go meet our customers where they are.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. A couple more things I want to cover. What's in the future for Alex and podcasting? Or I'm going to give you a choice of two questions. What's in the future for Alex? I know you've said you're gearing up for season 2. So what's in the future for Alex outside of season 2? Are we thinking this is going to be a long-term plan? Or where do you see podcasting from where you sit today, where do you see it headed in the next, say, 2 years or so, 3 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I've been keeping a spreadsheet of just all the different links and things of the podcast guest spots that I've had the opportunity to do this year. I'm approaching maybe like 30 guest spots, which has been a lot of fun because every single podcast is a different opportunity, different conversation, different host. So it's been really great information gathering for me as I'm trying to figure out what does season 2 look like. So will I keep up that pace next year? I think that's a really good question. It is a lot of time and energy, less energy on the guest side than the host side for sure. I think it's probably something that I'll continue to guest host for, but maybe at a slower clip to account for other things in my life and other environmental factors. But it's been a cool year so far. But in terms of podcasting, yeah, I think it's gotten so popular and it's getting very saturated. So it's been getting harder and harder for individuals to sort of find a message that is unique and really stick out in the marketplace. So I think we'll continue to see a lot more people sort of jump on this podcast piece. And as you said, they're getting more and more complex. Right now, they're really video interviews and have all of the different elements that come out of it. So I think we'll continue to see that on the rise. But with individuals' attention spans getting shorter and shorter, as all these new media pieces come out, I think some of those shorter segments that you talked about will be more key. People might not have the opportunity to sit down and listen to a 20, 30 hour long podcast anymore, but getting those quick nuggets of content in those 5-minute, 15-minute windows that they have time, I think we're seeing people's attention span go to still very much video, still very interested in this fresh, newer content that's coming out faster than books and other more traditional media, but smaller segments, I think, is where we're going.
I definitely agree. I think we're also going to see a shift with quality. And I think the shift will be not just quality, but how are those shows or where are those shows that really haven't had any fresh content for the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years in some cases? And what happens to those? Because I think that's creating an interesting piece in the saturation. Is there those shows still exist? There's nothing new, but they still exist. So I think we'll see those sort of maybe pushed down in an archive way. And, shows like yours and mine and the ones that are current and relevant and doing stuff all the time, I think those will be the ones that will continue to flourish and grow as long as the messaging and the correct platforms are used and the length is right? The timing is right for the show and you're leveraging it correctly. So, wow. Thank you so much for your insights on that. How can people get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to connect? And how can we listen to season 1, I guess? Where's the good place for that?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn. So Alex Stevens Love is the fastest way to get a hold of me professionally. If you happen to like powerlifting, babies, and pit bulls, Instagram is the place. So _AlexLove22. That's more of a personal account. But like I said, powerlifting, pit bulls, and babies, all over that content. And you can listen to season 1 on all podcasting platforms, but our URL is failingpod.com.
And soon to be season 2 content going out there too. So no pressure or anything, because I know it's in your plan, but we'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes as well for people to find them there for quick reference. Alex, this has been phenomenal. Before I turn you loose, I'll give you the final thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me again. I think final thought, again, kind of going back to my story where I did this kind of backwards. I think it goes to sort of the principle that I have in life is just try it, just do it. I think people get so scared of external perceptions that people are going to watch you fail or make fun of you or just have all of this anxiety about trying new things. And that's really kind of what our show is about, is putting that positive spin on failure. It's like, hey, we tried something or I had a goal. It did not work out. But look where I am today. I'm in a whole new place. I'm much more successful. I learned a lot along the way. And, I can laugh about the fact that I almost fell off a walking pad with an infant and a dog in one of my first episodes. So I think the message there is if you have an idea and you want to try something new, absolutely go try it. Most people won't even remember or are paying attention. So the only person judging you at the end of the day is really you.
Alex, that's a great place to leave it. Alex Love, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
And hey, thank you for being a part of the show today. So glad you could join us. Believe it or not, I can't work this magic by myself. So thanks to my amazing team, our audio engineer, Dom Carrillo, our sonic branding genius, Kenton Dilborowski, and the person who works the arms, all of our arms actually, our project manager and my trusty assistant, Jillavel Tiongo, known to us here simply as July. If you like what you heard today, let us know. You can leave us a comment or review or even send us a voice note. And if you really liked it, we hope you'll share it with your friends and your colleagues. If you don't like what you heard today, well, please feel free to share it with your enemies. And if you know of someone who would make a great guest on the show, let us know about it. You can get in touch with us by going to our show notes where all of our connection points are there, including the links to our website, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. And if you're ready to be a guest on podcasts or even start your own show, let's have a conversation. We'll show you the simplest way to get into the podcasting space and rock it. Because, after all, we're Podcast Solutions Made Simple. Catch you again next time.